Let me begin by just saying thank you all for being here. I want to also say thank you all to all Arizonans. There's been a lot of sacrifice that has happened in our state over the last 45 days. It's been an incredible couple months, from Easter to school to canceled weddings to the folks that have lost their jobs or had reductions in pay, the small businesses that are not operating, but we've been doing it for a reason. We're going to share with you the latest information and data and where Arizona is today, but I want to just express my gratitude and appreciation for the cooperation, partnership, and support of the people of Arizona, and how grateful I am for the sacrifice. Now, we have been behaving as a family in this state. What families do is mutual sacrifice to take care of those who can't take care of themselves or those that are most vulnerable. We're prepared today as a state because we have approached this as a family. We've worked together, we've united together, and we're going to continue to take that approach, to protect our citizens, to let public health lead, and to pay attention to the other things that are necessary. I've invoked my grandmother a number of times in these press conferences. She's 96 years old. She's in a long-term care facility. These are the folks that have been the most vulnerable, that remain the most vulnerable, and these are the folks that we want to protect. And I want to say that your actions are working. Everyone is doing their part. It's just not that I feel that or it's anecdotal. You see it. My job, part of the contract, is that I come in every day. There's no rush hour. The guys that drive don't speed, but they could, because there isn't much traffic. It's a 40% decrease in terms of what's happened year over year. And really, that's been part of the objective. A lot of these decisions were so that we could have the social distancing and the physical distancing, so people have been paying attention to what's been asked. And again, I want people to know how grateful I am. And we're seeing some evidence that it's working. I want to take you through this chart. The gold line is the COVID-like illness surveillance, and this is back from December 29th, and the blue line is the influenza or flu-like surveillance. These are tens of thousands of visits, both to emergency rooms and inpatient, month over month. The stay home, stay healthy, stay connected order was put into effect on the 31st of March, and you can see the trend downward. And this is where we want to see a downward trend over the last few weeks. So this is good news and a good direction. And it gives us the ability to hopefully see what's possible and what's next in our state. Even with that good trend, this isn't just about numbers or trends or pie charts. This is about the people of Arizona. And we have lost to date 304 lives in this state. So we have it on sound authority that we'll grieve with those that grieve and mourn with those that mourn. Everyone in our state has been indirectly affected by COVID-19. No one more directly than these 304 families, these 304 people, these souls that have been lost. And we want to make decisions so that we reduce this number to the best of our ability, eliminate unnecessary deaths that are happening in our state, and to slow this spread. So let me give you the latest. So these are the COVID-19 cases day by day. If you look at the far side of the chart, our first case came again on January 26th. It seems a lifetime ago. The next day, we set up the Emergency Operations Center, and you can see the decisions as they happened over the course of time. The public health emergency declared on March 11th, schools closed on the 15th, dine-in restaurants closed on the 19th, the stay home, stay healthy, stay connected order on the 31st, and you can see what's happened over the next 30 days. Now, if you're looking for a takeaway from this chart, again, there's a lot of information here. There is case-by-case daily information, but there is not a trend. And what I'm looking for, what Dr. Christ is looking for, are trends. Those last 4 or 5 days lag, and those will be filled in. We also track deaths by day. This is something we want to see reduced. Again, a lot of information here. With the last 4 or 5 days having yet to be filled in, you don't see a trend. But I want to share with you the tough information. Now, if you look at this on a composite basis, if you look at it by week, and you'll notice the most recent week, so that we could fill in the dates, is April 19th. So the question is, have we plateaued? Are we decreasing? And what will the information look like at close of week, April 26th? And again, that lags 1 week. We'll have that information on May 3rd. But the fact, of course, that you see this decrease in deaths by week is good news. And really, it's what we've been preparing for, is the unknown. This is a global pandemic. You do plan on a worst case scenario, and that's what we've been focused on, and we haven't seen it yet, if indeed it is coming in Arizona. So let me give you a brisk update on where we are. If this were to come in fuller force than what we've seen, we need hospital beds for our people. The gray line, or the gray color, indicates inpatient beds that are available. The blue line indicates the beds that are in use. And the gold or orange, depending on how it shows on your screen, that shows the inpatient beds that are being used today for COVID-19 patients. You can see that is a small population of our hospital capacity today, and it has hovered somewhere between 7 and 10%, and it's been fairly consistent. If there's a takeaway from this slide, it's that we have capacity today in our hospital system if necessary. I also want you to know, I should have introduced them as we sat down. To my right is Dr. Kara Christ, who leads the Department of Health Services. To my left is Major General Mick McGuire, who's standing up our Department of Emergency Management and leads the National Guard. Together, they've added 1,560 beds in hospital capacity over the last 24 days. Intensive care unit hospital beds. That's if you get sick and you're very sick, you need an ICU bed. Same graphic scheme here. Gray is availability. Blue is beds in use, and the orange indicates COVID-19 patients. It's about 18 to 20% of available beds, and it's steady. It's a plateau, not really a trend, but you certainly do not see an increase, and this is data that we have in real time. On the ICU beds, Dr. Christ and General McGuire were able to add 1,928 beds over the last 24 days. And lastly, several weeks ago, the big discussion nationally was on ventilators. We went into acquisition and discovery mode. Where are our ventilators? How many do we have? We knew of 300 in the state of Arizona. Gray represents available ventilators today. Blue represents the ventilators that are in use, and the ventilators for COVID patients, you can see there at the bottom, kind of represents what you've seen before, a flat line. There's not a surge, but a takeaway is there are available beds, there are available ICU beds, there are available ventilators. Arizona has been preparing, and Arizona is prepared. We were also able to surge that number of ventilators from 300 to 1,718 available today. Now there's a lot of discussion around testing, and we've done nearly 70,000 tests to date in Arizona. I think it's 69,077 we reported today. We need more testing. We need diagnostic testing and antibody testing. We're going to have a Blitz this weekend in partnership with our community labs to rapidly increase diagnostic testing available at drive-through sites. I want to thank the partners, Banner Health, Walgreens, and others that are stepping forward. What this test will tell you, and these tests have been prioritized to people that were symptomatic or sick, and of course our healthcare workers. It's now being expanded. Dr. Christ has issued a statewide standing order allowing anyone who thinks they are infected with COVID-19 or has been recently exposed to COVID-19, you can be tested. And we will have available tests, thousands and thousands of them this weekend. So if you're in this category, if you think you are infected, if you think you've been recently exposed to COVID-19, please go to azhealth.gov/testing blitz and sign up to be tested this weekend. And what this diagnostic test tells you is if you are sick right now. It tells you if you have COVID-19. You could wait in line, get this test, leave your car, open up a door of a public building and contract COVID-19. So it's not only about finding out if you're sick, we of course want to continue to prevent people from getting sick. But that's the testing blitz. We're also going to be ramping up antibody testing. What that tells you is if you've contracted COVID-19 in the past and have since recovered. Sonora Quest Laboratories have 1,000 to 3,000 tests per day, and growing from there. You're going to see more on that in early May, where you can find information. I had Dr. Bobby Robbins here about 10 days ago. The University of Arizona is funding 250,000 COVID-19 antibody tests for healthcare workers, first responders, and I saw Dr. Robbins on a national news show last night. He said he's going to be able to test all of the University of Arizona faculty and students. I'd love to see that extended to all of our college students throughout Arizona, and I'm thankful to Dr. Robbins for his leadership on antibody testing. So going forward, I just want you to know that we're going to continue to act with both our heads and our hearts on this. We're putting public safety and public health first. I'm following the guidance and the health guidance, and we realize that every decision that's been made affects the citizens of Arizona. And we want you to understand why we're making decisions and in what orders, because we know that we have asked a lot of the people of Arizona. So let's get to today's announcement. Our travel restrictions order will be extended through May 15th. This was to areas of the country that had travel advisories. Most recently and today, that is New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut, and that will continue through the 15th. In addition, our stay home, stay healthy, stay connected order is extended through May 15th with modifications so that we can return stronger, not only from a health perspective, as a state, but economically. I think you can see with what we've been able to share so far, we have avoided what has happened in so many parts of our globe and our country. Our physical distancing is working. Your cooperation is working. I'm confident that we can say that we've seen the spread has been slowed, and these have been hard-fought gains. We've earned where we are today, and we are not going to undo this. The objective is that we do return stronger economically. We are going to focus on public health, and we have our arms around that at this time. So I want to discuss a little bit about what returning stronger will look like. I've talked about turning up the light in Arizona's economy. This pandemic has dimmed our economy as a result of the sacrifice that everyone in our state is making to slow the spread of this virus and of all that we didn't know 45 days ago. Now we know more, and the objective, while continuing to focus on protecting public health, is going to be to turn up the light in our economy. Heading into this pandemic, Arizona was the brightest light in the nation for economic growth, development, and momentum. And I'm confident that if we're responsible and thoughtful and methodical, we will be the brightest light economically going forward. So let's talk about how we're going to do this. We're going to return to physical health and economic health the Arizona way. So it will be gradual and phased in. You can think of that dial, if we make the right decisions at the right time, will be turned up at the appropriate times in the coming weeks and months. We're going to balance public health with the idea of returning stronger economically. We're going to increase testing to return in May while maintaining strong physical distancing, so that these habits that we've acquired over the last 45 days will not be with us forever, but they're going to be with us for the time being. And we're going to phase in return on the recommendation of the Centers for Disease Control and health experts through May and June. So before I talk about that, I want to say I've been listening. I've had a lot of phone calls, a lot of teleconferences. I've talked to a lot of business owners, and just about everybody knows my background was in the business world before I came and ran for public office. I'm aware of what other states are doing, but my focus the entire time has been on the state of Arizona. Our circumstances are different than any other state in the nation, and our decisions have been made to do what's the right thing for the state of Arizona. I was talking with a Fortune 100 CEO of a major big box retail chain. Everyone would recognize the brand. And he was sharing with me the numbers that they were seeing across the country and in Arizona. And he said to me earlier this week, he said, Governor, 30% of your citizens are ready to go out tonight to dinner. They are ready to go. They are over whatever fear was there, and now it's all frustration. He said there's another 30% of your citizens that don't want to leave the house until a vaccination is found. The fear remains very high. They are concerned, and they are very scared of contracting COVID. And he said, and then there's a group in the middle, 40%, who aren't sure, that don't know, that want to see evidence as to how they make decisions before they re-enter the economy. So I want you to know that my decisions are going to be made on what's best in Arizona, But what good is it to make a decision if you don't have the citizen and consumer confidence of the largest portion of your population? Because I not only want to reopen the economy, I intend to reopen the economy successfully in doing this. I intend to have our largest cities participating in it, our industries participating in those decisions. And I thought of this because I saw some decisions that were made elsewhere in a state with some similarities in terms of population to Arizona. And some of the leading folks in the restaurant industry said, we're not opening. We're not going to participate. Now, many of you were there when I kicked off my campaign for governor. I kicked it off at a Sam Fox restaurant. Now, Sam Fox isn't political. We're just friends because we were in the same business some time ago. So he let me come to that venue and make the announcement. What good would it be to reopen our restaurants if leaders like Sam Fox said, we're not going to participate? So we're going to make the decisions in a responsible way so we're not only successful in doing it, but we have safe participation. So I want to begin because I don't think that anybody ever believed that on May 1st we would have a return to normalcy in Arizona. What we want to do is eventually and gradually get there. So to review what's closed, the objective was that we didn't have large gatherings. That's how you had the rapid spread of COVID-19. That's what we had seen in New York State, in Mardi Gras, in New Orleans, and in some other large cities. So schools, universities, restaurants, down the line, disbursement of spring training, the fact that Major League Baseball never started up, the NBA never finished up, places like casinos. And I realize the sacrifice around weddings and outdoor events, most retail and daycare. But what's been closed has made the difference in terms of where we are right now in hospital capacity and the fact that we can make different decisions going forward. I hope it's not lost on anybody that we did do things differently in Arizona. We had a later timing and a lighter touch. 32 states issued a stay-at-home order before Arizona. They did it because their circumstances were different. We wanted to do ours in alignment with Centers for Disease Control and Public Health. And if you want to be judged in this position right now, I'd say the first thing you want to be judged on is how did you protect the citizens around public health? And I would say so far, so good, with more to follow. What's next is how will we be judged on our economic recovery and rebound in the state of Arizona. So in Arizona, we allowed a greater number of industries to stay operating. Just this week, I had a call from another friend in the restaurant industry who said, I realize we're not ready in the restaurant industry to reopen today, but you've got to get other stuff open. Just open it up. And I said, well, like what? What are you talking about that you'd like to see open? They said, let's build something. Let's reopen construction. Well, I want you to know, look at this list. Health and public health operations never shut down. Construction never shut down because you can physically distance on a construction site. Our manufacturers never shut down, and they were responsible in their practices in their manufacturing plants. And down the line, delivery and takeout, grocery stores, pharmacies, essential retail, gas stations, hardware stores, hotels and motels, car dealers, auto mechanics. I asked people to be healthy. They've been out in our state parks, hiking and running and walking. A lot of the folks in the media didn't like that golf courses remained open, but there's no place that's easier to physically distance than in a golf course. Our charitable organizations have remained operating and doing a great job. Goodwill, the media, of course, has remained open along with banks, credit unions, critical trades, postal services, laundry services, and at our last meeting, elective surgeries were reopened. So I want you to know, as much as we need to turn the dial and brighten our economy has not been completely darkened. There has been some energy and revenue flowing through it. That's been part of the gradual, responsible, and balanced approach, and that's what we'll continue to do going forward, step by step. So the next step in terms of breathing life back into small businesses is we're going to bring back a small step in terms of a revival to Main Street with a partial reopening to retail. You'll see this beginning on Monday, May 4th, and expanded on Friday, May 8th. It will be voluntary. We've learned a lot from our big box operators, our Costco's and our Targets, our grocery stores, our Fry's and Safeways, in terms of how to socially distance. We're concerned most, not only about our most vulnerable in public health, but our small and medium business owners. And this will be a way to allow them to participate in a safe and gradual way. There will be more details on our website and ArizonaConnected.org. I also want you to know that we have a goal. We're planning ahead in terms of what we want to do. Next week, you'll see a plan that's going to be released, informed and in cooperation with the restaurant industry. We're working with the Arizona Restaurant Association and Steve Chukri within CDC guidance so that we can begin to expand dine-in. Our goal is to do this sometime in May. We are aspirational at this time. The best case scenario, according to the industry, would be on May 12th. But it will have to be in coordination with the industry and public health. Our goal is to get this open in May. We're working with the leaders in the industry for best practices. A lot of people are talking about a new normal that's going to happen going forward. I'd like to think of it more as a temporary normal. And when you do walk in to one of those opened restaurants for dine-in, it will be a different experience. It'll be a temporary experience with food service workers and service workers wearing masks. Rather than coming to your table and asking you what you'd like to drink, they'll likely inform you that they've just washed their hands and ask how you would like your food delivered, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But a best case scenario on that is May 12th. We're going to work with the industry and we'll have best practices going forward. Elective surgeries were brought back last week. They'll begin on May 1st. They authorize hospitals and outpatient surgical centers to resume elective surgeries if they can demonstrate adequate capacity. Today, there's 1,090 of these establishments that are eligible to resume surgeries. So that includes hospitals, outpatient surgical centers, physicians, and dentists. So going forward, this won't change. The new habits we've acquired of washing your hands, avoid touching your face, covering your cough, this makes a difference. I think this is something that's just going to be good manners and good social etiquette going forward. So let's keep it up. And again, if you're sick, please stay home. Don't come to work as we see our economy begin to reopen. If you're teleworking today, continue to telework. We'll have more information on small and medium businesses in the coming weeks. What you can expect in May, and we'll visit as often as necessary, is we will continue in Arizona to put public health first. It'll be a step-by-step approach. We're going to have ongoing announcements as data informs our decisions. We'll give citizens and businesses the time to plan and adjust. The goal is that there will be no unpleasant surprises going forward. And we're going to follow the facts and CDC guidelines. So if you're looking for a headline among all this information and data, and I know that there is a lot here, I get to spend time with it every day. But if I wanted to summarize it, I would say that the stay-at-home order is in effect until May 15th, and Arizona's economy begins to gradually reopen. Dr. Christ?
Thank you. Do you mind going to the next slide for me, Hunter? Thank you. So just to give a brief update on where we are, today we're at 7,202 cases. We've had over 68,000 tests performed in Arizona, and we're hoping that that will increase with this weekend's Blitz. We do have cases in all 15 counties, and there have been 304 deaths of our Arizonans. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Christ. Now I'm going to turn it over to Major General Mick McGuire, who's going to give an update. If Arizona did have a hot spot, a thing that informed many of our decisions, it was on the Navajo Nation. It's something we've had a laser focus on protecting public health. I was able to address the community via their Facebook live meeting on Saturday night. And General McGuire, along with the National Guard, has surged emergency medical supplies and personnel to Navajo Nation. Will you give us an update, please, General?
Yes, sir, Governor. Thank you. As I mentioned last week, we did get a federal Type 1 incident management team up there led by Mr. Dave Samiago to join up with Brigadier General McDonald, working with President Nez and all of the leaders on the nation. In the last week, we've received 2 federal disaster medical assistance teams. I want to thank FEMA Region 9 for that. Those 2 teams are intended to man alternate care sites facilities in Chinle and Shiprock. The staffs arrived early, so we were able to get them integrated in Tuba City, Chinle, Fort Defiance, as well as Crown Point and Shiprock, to get them familiar with what's going on as we stand up. We're waiting final equipment for the 2 alternate care sites there, and we expect to open them this weekend. And then additionally, we continue to surge in task force logistics, meeting the food bank mission, and appreciate all the agricultural and food suppliers in the state stepping up and helping fill the requirement at the food banks. We've really increased that mission as we've pivoted away from the restocking mission and looking more at moving food to the food banks for our citizens.
Thanks very much, General. Thank you for the hard work of the brave women and men of the National Guard. Arizona and Navajo Nation is eternally grateful. We also, with Dr. Christ and General McGuire, we just got off a conference call with Secretary of Defense Mark Esper, who was specifically asking about Navajo Nation. I want to say President Trump, Vice President Pence, Dr. Anthony Fauci, Dr. Deborah Birx, Secretary Esper, Secretary Ross, who I'll be talking to later this evening, have given a real attention and focus on Arizona. We need that partnership and commitment, and we are grateful for it. And I'll close by just saying again to the people of Arizona, thank you. We are headed in the right direction. There is a real opportunity for May to be dramatically different than March or April. I'm cautiously optimistic, and we're going to make the right decisions with public health at the top of mind while gradually opening and increasing Arizona's economy. And with that, we'll take some questions.
Start on that side. We'll start with my heart. Governor, specifically, what would you need to see to open bars and restaurants? You mentioned today, I believe May 12th would be the best case scenario. Specifically, what would you need to see? And could you clarify what kinds of small businesses can begin to voluntarily open?
So good question. And the question was, what specifically would I need for bars and restaurants to open? So let me clarify that at this point in time, bars are not under consideration. Okay, it will be dine-in restaurants, and I realize that there are some bars or pubs where they serve hamburgers. Those types of settings will be different, and we'll work with the industry so that they have the guidance. But if you're thinking of a primarily that bar, that's later on in the White House and Centers for Disease Control guidance. And really, what we're measuring are the cases, the symptoms, and the hospital capacity, along with some data from testing. We do have some good trends. We just need some more data and information. I'm very hopeful. Like I said, I wouldn't have put out an aspirational date if I didn't think that it was achievable, or if that we could come within a week or two of it. If good news would accelerate, we could accelerate. I want you to know that we're working with the industry, and the industry has said to us the fastest we could open and have that temporary new normal inside our dine-in experience would be May 12th. Now, I've heard from a lot of business people who want to inform me on what other states are doing in other parts of the country that have other situations. I know there are states that have opened, I think this upcoming week, at 25% capacity. Well, anybody that's ever run a restaurant knows that 25% is the surest way to just continually lose a lot more money. Okay? We'll be able to open up within CDC guidelines, enforcing physical distancing, that it will allow restaurateurs to rehire and re-engage their employees and also have a pleasant consumer experience. So that's what you should expect first. Bars, larger areas like that don't have dine-in or sit-down will come later. And then the second part of your question?
Small businesses. You mentioned that some can open voluntarily. Can you clarify?
So it would be any small business that was out of that essential grocery category. Many of these closed voluntarily to begin with. I think it was Howie who asked last week, how is it fair that a Costco or a Target is open and some of these other small retailers are not? Well, again, people have stayed home. They haven't really been out shopping except for their essentials. These are basically pickup situations, and we've gotten much better at call-in, pickup, and delivery, with an expansion of that over time from May 4th to May 8th. It will be gradual, but it's really a catch-all category of small businesses.
Governor, we know you can't please everybody, but there are some businesses that have said they will reopen regardless of what your order is or your extension is today. What do you say to those businesses, those restaurants? And a follow-up question to that, what do you say to the small businesses that you're telling to stay closed for another 2 weeks if they can't hang on financially?
Well, the first thing I want to say is to every small business owner out there, to every medium-sized business owner, to every employee that is paid and lives week to week. That is the world that I came from. Those are the people that I have worked with my entire career. And I feel your frustration. And I have a sense of urgency to reopen. And I want to do that. I just want to do it at the right time, and I want it to be successful. It would be irresponsible for me to make decisions to reopen with the chance that I would have to come back because we didn't have the proper guidance or data and ask people to do this again. If we are able to do this and do this successfully, and what I've given is a line of sight till May 15th, I've actually said that the date on May 12th, and that's according to the industry. I would like to be there. It's aspirational, and it's possible. So I want to get there now. There's a raft of help that is coming from the state and from the federal government. We'll be talking more specifically about that for the employees. I don't want to see anyone get laid off, but if you are laid off, there's $840 a week in benefits from the state for 26 weeks with an extension of 13 weeks thereafter if it would were to be necessary. And there's also the Paycheck Protection Program from Congress, and I understand the frustration that not everyone has been able to access this. I have relationships that have been able to access it, and I have relationships that have gotten stiffed on this. So I'm working with our congressional delegation, with our senators, so that we can make this right. And I'm asking people to hold on. We've worked with landlords and with banks so that no one is evicted, no one is locked out, no one loses their place of business. And once we can get reopened and we see that light at the end of the tunnel beginning to brighten, we're going to have options beyond that. Until that date, this order is in effect. And I'm asking everyone, as they have, this order's been in effect for 30 days. And I know it's been a long 30 days for all of us. Most of all, those that are the small business owners and the medium-sized business owners and their employees, people that have lost their jobs or had a reduction in pay. It's 15 more days. I'm asking for some patience.
Yeah, so Governor, I want to follow up to that question. There are many people, even in your own party, small business owners, who say they're going to reopen Friday morning. They've already put it on Facebook. They say there are no repercussions, so why not do it? How are you going to be enforcing this?
Well, so far, people have listened to the order, and I'm grateful that they've done that. Let me answer the question, please. I've got the question. To date, we've had where, of course, some phone calls have had to have been made or law enforcement has had to show up. But I would say, by and large, there's been, I don't know if I could say 100% cooperation, but pretty close to 100% cooperation. I'm asking for that going forward. If that's not there, this is an order that is enforceable by law. A violation is a $2,500 fine and up to 6 months in jail. And for those that own an establishment and are publicly going to flaunt the order, you are playing with your liquor license. Don't do that.
Governor, as you start to reopen segments of the economy, if there are employees who are right now, they're getting unemployment because they're unemployed, and they're offered their job back, but they don't feel safe going to work. Maybe their immune system's compromised, maybe their partner is a cancer patient. Are they still eligible for unemployment? What do you say to those people?
So, JJ, I'm going to restate your question because I don't know that everyone heard it. Before I do it, I just want to circle back and say, I want everyone to remember, as a small business owner in the past, I don't take any joy at all in putting an order out there that's enforceable by law, that provides fines and et cetera. Let's remember why we're doing this, and it's to protect public health. It's because we have people that are dying that have contracted COVID-19. We've been able to reduce that number. We've been able to slow the spread. We're heading in the right direction. We want to continue heading in the right direction. And I want to be cautiously optimistic because I'd rather under promise and over deliver, but we're closer. So please stick with it. And the question beyond that was, as people are being rehired into the economy and they are on unemployment today, if their immune system is compromised, if they're affected by COVID-19, would they lose their benefits if they were not to take their job back? Is that fair, JJ? We're going to have flexibility. Okay, we're going to have flexibility around this. We want to see people that were employed reemployed. I'm thankful to the business owners that have been innovative and have provided telework, are allowing their employees to stay on. I know some business owners that have been able to access benefits, and they continue to pay their employees not only their salary and benefits to not work, but to hang on till they reopen. And the state benefits were there for just a downturn. We never imagined that it would be falling off a cliff like our economy did. But we realized that there's real fear and anxiety. There were many more unknowns going backwards. We're starting to fill in some of the blanks going forward. But the social safety net is not there to be punitive. It is there to keep people from falling through the cracks, and when it's properly administered, it should also serve as somewhat of a trampoline to appropriately return them to the workforce at the right time.
So does the existing legal structure around unemployment allow for it to not be punitive?
I'm going to be working with the legislative leadership, and I want to thank legislative leadership for being so helpful along the way to where we are to make sure we provide clarity.
Hi, Governor. Two questions. First one is strictly technical. I'm trying to think of restaurants. I know that your colleague, Mr. Abbott in Texas, had some very specific guidelines. I know I don't want to do 25%, but he talked about things like non-reusable menus and one-use packets and things like that, and no salad bars. Can you give us some better idea of how this is going to work for restaurants? Because I think you've talked about it'll be a nice experience, but I'm not sure I understand how this is going to work.
Yeah, it's a good question, Howie. This idea of what will this temporary normal look like when you go out into a restaurant? Well, of course, I have a really talented team, but we also have some really talented restaurateurs here in Arizona. I think we've seen over the last 10 or 15 years, it's as good as anywhere in the country or the world. They are putting together some ideas around this because as much as they want to reopen at the earliest by May 12th, they want to reopen successfully. That 30% of the population that I talked about that's ready to go out to dinner tonight, that is not going to make for a successful restaurant industry. We want as many people as possible participating in the resurgence of our economy. So to do that, they're going to have to feel safe. And the 30% that I talked about that aren't going to, according to the large box retailer, their data, that aren't going to leave their home until there's a vaccine, well, it's possible that they're persuadable, that they'll be listening to that 40% in the middle who are saying when they went out that they could tell the restaurant was cleaner, that social distancing was enforced, that the server and the food people on the line not only had a mask on, but where appropriate, they had gloves, that there was a reminder around hand washing and an increased sanitization. I'm certain that the restaurants will also have even better ideas. I know that there's concern around the menus and the spread of the virus on the menus. So we're going to work with them and have some time. So that's presented, and that's the standard of expectation and excellence that you would see. And then for us to be successful and for our restaurants to be successful, they're going to have people coming in, and I think people are going to have a healthy skepticism as to how things have changed and how can I feel comfortable that I'm not going to be exposed to this virus in your establishment.
Quick follow-up. You made a point of saying we're not like other states. We're not like Texas. We're not like New Mexico. We have 91 cities and 15 counties in this state. I've talked to mayors. I've talked to supervisors. And yet you want a one-size-fits-all for Arizona. I mean, Wilcox is different than Tucson. Flagstaff is different than Yuma. So are you going to leave an option in there for mayors looking at the facts on the ground to say, come May 15th, no, maybe we're not ready?
So let me clarify. Arizona is different than other states. We've taken a different approach. We'll continue to take a different approach. And your point is well taken. Different parts of the state are different. I realize that. That's one of the best things about running for this office is you get to all 15 counties and every part of our beautiful state. And your words, not mine, I do not want a one-size-fits-all. Of course, it would be more convenient for everyone if all guidance could be statewide. There would be less confusion. But if there were evidence that we could differentiate from that, we would, and it would be county by county. To date, none of the counties that we have, if you look at each section of the state, the northern part of the state, the central part of the state, or the southern part of the state, each of them have their own issues that wouldn't allow for that county-wide declaration. Now, I know nearly all of our mayors. We visit with them. We've certainly have gotten their input, and we're going to continue to listen. But we're going to make those decisions, whether it's continuing statewide or county by county. It would be whichever came first and was most responsible.
To make it clear, in the city of Tucson, if Mayor Romero says our restaurants are not ready to open up on May 15th, May 18th, whatever that is, she will not be free to decide that.
When I give guidance statewide, it is statewide and it is enforceable by law. It is the same when the governor gives guidance county by county. To date, our guidance has been statewide. Those are the options, and those are also the options and recommendations from the Centers for Disease Control and the White House.
Governor, thanks for taking a question. You said more's to come kind of on your roadmap with dine-in restaurants, et cetera, but why not release a phase-by-phase approach, the roadmap, so we can see what businesses are going to fall where, so they have an idea? And how come you're the one deciding what business is more important than the other? So retail opening compared to a salon.
So I want to say that what Dr. Chris does is medical science. Okay, what we are doing in the reopening of the economy is with the guidance of medical science and protecting public health first, but the decisions are not. If you look at the decisions heading into the pandemic, it was to slow the spread, about shutting down the largest possible gathering points. If you look at what we've done in terms of the steps we've taken so far, it's been opening things in the most gradual of ways, and it will be ever increasing. Now, when you hear somebody say, play ball or batter up, or are you ready for some football when fans are allowed, these are the largest possible gatherings, and that will be an indication that we've come as close to a return to normality from where we are. But the decisions that I've been made have not been about which business is more important than another business. It's been around what public health is and where can we enforce social distancing. And you talked about a category that I have a lot of affection for the people that work in it, and that's our barber shops. I don't spend a lot of time in nail salons or hair salons, but they are in the same category. We are working with the industry on what best practices are around increased sanitization, business by appointment, social distancing inside the shop, facial coverings, both for employees and for customers in a voluntary capacity. There will be more to follow. And those are small footprints as well, Nicole. Those are smaller footprints. So those are things that we are aspirational to be talking about in May.
You're talking about large gatherings. We're just learning that the president is expected to come next week. He draws large crowds here. If people flock to where he is, what are you going to do with thousands and thousands of people, and should he be coming?
Well, first of all, I want to say the president's always welcome in Arizona. If we don't set the White House travel schedule from the governor's office. We've been talking, of course, I'm talking with the president and vice president every week. I think there's a specific reason that he wants to come to Arizona. I don't know that that's public, and it's not my role to disclose it.
Okay. And if large amounts of people show up, though, are you going to do anything for people?
I'm asking people to stay home, stay healthy, and stay connected.
So basically, you're saying don't come to the president's rally?
I'm going to stand by the words that I've said, and Howie, that's not what's been announced.
We're going to go to Zoom next, so we're going to call on Leon Felipe Gonzalez from Univision. Leon, go ahead.
We've been talking before about undocumented people and the importance of this community in our economy. They pay taxes, they are part of our economy, but they are not able to get unemployment benefits and also a federal government help. What's your message for them in these difficult times in terms of their economy?
Thank you, Leon. And I do think, as thoughtful and hardworking as we have been, as Congress has tried to be, this is something that was not anticipated. I think people are making the best possible decisions that they can in this environment. The focus first and foremost has been around protecting public health and making sure that anyone that contracted COVID-19, that was in a situation where they needed assistance, a hospital bed, ICU, ventilator, that was available. We have that today. Now we're looking to navigate to the best of our ability to the other side of this pandemic with still a lot of unknowns in front of us. But we're going to continue in that spirit.
We're going to do another one from Zoom. Lorraine Rivera from ADPM. Lorraine, go ahead.
Hi, Lorraine.
Lorraine, you're on. Can you hear us?
All right.
Go ahead.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Lorraine. Go ahead.
All right. For some clarification, I noticed that you said that places like, it's not worth losing your liquor license. What about a hair salon that's selling product or the nail shop that's selling product? Are they able to reopen but not do things like nails and hair?
So I'd ask people, it's a good question. I think people can hear it because it was on the loudspeaker. Smaller retail that is selling product in a curbside delivery fashion and not in violation of any order that's out there or has not expired can go ahead and do that. The information will be at azhealth.gov or arizonatogether.org. And that would be to sell product. It would not be to conduct the additional services, but I am aspirational that we will get there. We're just not there yet.
Governor, follow-up question. There has been quite a bit of concern over liquor stores being allowed to remain open, but church services not. How have you made those decisions about which places can actually function?
Well, first I want to say we have not made decisions about what places can actually function. We have made decisions around what is the proper guidance to slow the spread of this disease. And it's been from the Centers for Disease Control that gatherings of fewer than 10 are what help spread the disease. And that's, as you look through the slides of the places that have been closed, the places that have been allowed to remain open, and the places that are reopening. It's still in that same spirit. There will be a point where we'll have gatherings of larger than 10. I want to say to the pastors, the priests, the rabbis, the faith-based leaders, they have been incredibly responsible through this. There's been guidance that's been given out from the Catholic Church, diocese by diocese, the LDS Church, and the evangelical community. And to date, they've been shoulder to shoulder. I've not only had meetings, but conference calls. I'm grateful for their innovation, the way that they've protected their flock, their special attention to the most vulnerable in their congregations, and we'll continue to act in that spirit as well.
If you haven't gotten to the room, so we'll do that now. We'll start with Matt, and we'll come back.
Governor, just to go back to the salon question, and I'll stay away from the salon and we'll go to a different business like a gym. If I'm a gym owner sitting at home and I hear that, okay, we don't want restaurants to go back to 25%, they won't be as successful, but it's a best case scenario of May 12th. What's a best case scenario for me as a gym owner or as a salon owner or as a barbershop owner? If I can hear restaurants are going to have more than 25% capacity, I could probably have that too. So what's the best case scenario for that?
So it's a good question. I don't know if everyone heard it, but the question was specifically around gyms. And I gave a best-case scenario for dine-in with social distancing of May 12th. What's a best-case scenario for gyms, salons, barbershops? We're working with all these industries. I mean, we think of all of these things. There was an order that was put out earlier, some time ago, around essential services. Well, anybody that has a job sees that job as essential, especially if it's what feeds their family. And eventually, we're going to turn that dial and bring, full light and energy to our economy. And the businesses that you're listing of gyms and barbershops and salons are all part of it. So we are working with those industries. And if you look or think of it from the places where smaller numbers congregate to larger numbers congregate, though that will likely be how the decisions are made, along with seeing reinforcing trends within the guidance. I think you can kind of see how we can get there. I'm hopeful for the month of May. I think May can be a very positive month. Again, I'd rather underpromise and overdeliver.
Yeah, I do want to kind of circle back to salons, barbershops, and stuff like that. You only closed them down after a lot of public pressure. Now they are not part of this list.
They are.
They're not going to be reopened.
Yes, I think the question's been asked maybe 2 times and answered 2 times.
I feel like you made a mistake keeping it open that long.
I think that every decision that was made along the way was a decision that was difficult, that I was reluctant to make, but thought it was the best possible decision to slow the spread of COVID-19. And the decisions that I'm going to make going forward are going to be decisions to turn the light back on in our economy, to allow people to get out and make a living while not putting our citizens and our most vulnerable in harm's way.
Promise not to ask about salons, sir. I'd like to go back to the beginning of the news conference and something you said last week. These are going to be data-driven decisions. As you acknowledge, the trends don't show us, the trends aren't positive. As far as I can see, there's no data that would support any kind of opening by anybody. So why open retail, as slim as this is right now, and then aim for an opening of restaurants by mid-May when, as of now, there's no data that would support that?
Well, I want to really push back on how the question was posed. There's a lot of data. I took you through just a summary version of all the data that you're seeing. Let's not reset the goalpost in the media, shall we? This has always been a disease and a virus that has spread, which is determined by medical science to be widespread. The virus is not going away. What we're going to do is mitigate the illnesses and reduce the deaths. You just saw all the data that we have since December 29th, 2019 in Arizona, okay? The trend on COVID-like surveillance is positive for the last 3 weeks. The trend on influenza-like surveillance is positive for the last 4 weeks. There's other data we're measuring around cases, symptoms, hospitals, and testing. The steps that we've put forward are incremental, they're balanced, they're responsible, they are in alignment with the Department of Health Safety, and I'm confident that we'll be able to maintain or improve the position where we are.
So I'll push back on that if I can. The CLI data is just one of 6 measurements actually where we're okay. You look at the other side of the CLI data, and hospitalizations are up 50%. That seems like that goes counter to what's happening in the ER.
Well,
come in there, and again, you put up at least 2 charts, perhaps 3 today, where you said, well, and I give you credit for this, there's no trend here. So again, where is the data that backs up any kind of...
The data is on the website, azhealth.gov. Now, yes, we have sick people inside our hospitals that do not have COVID-19. We're going to take care of those people. That's not how we're measuring the healthcare capacity for the pandemic. okay? Remember, it wasn't that long ago that I was hearing from folks in the audience, live audience here, that we don't have enough PPE. Then we didn't have enough ventilators. Then we didn't have enough hospital beds. Then we didn't have enough testing. Okay, we've addressed each one of these problems and situations in turn. It has all been so that we can care for the individuals that contract COVID-19. And today, we can do that. We're not even showing you what's possible with the Army Corps of Engineers and the National Guard in terms of increasing and surging field capacity if it were to be needed. It's just on the horizon, we're not seeing that.
Real quick, nursing homes and prisons. These are two hotspots in Arizona, and there is absolutely no transparency on either of them. We don't know what's going on with testing in prisons. What testing there is appears to be fairly slim. As far as I know, as of now, ADC still has not confirmed that an inmate has died of COVID-19. Nursing homes, we don't know where they are. We get calls all the time from people saying, hey, my grandmother, my mother, my this, my that, what's going on?
Okay, I want to address, first I want to push back on the question, okay? There is an incredible amount of care and attention to long-term nursing homes. I've mentioned my grandmother happens to be in one of these, and it is where our most vulnerable population. It was the first executive order that I put out after we had our first case of COVID-19. And Dr. Christ is going to talk to you about the transparency that is in those nursing homes. You see them as places, I see them as people. Okay? And in terms of our Department of Corrections, that is the responsibility of the governor and the Department of Corrections. We've got CDC guidance that's on the AZ Corrections Rehabilitation and Reentry website, 26 pages, which we are following, and we want to keep all of the inmates safe, and we want to keep all of the correctional officers safe. And when we do have a positive transmission or test, we cohort that inmate outside of the general population. We're going to have a lot more testing that's going on, not only for the inmates, but for the correctional officers. And if they are in the vulnerable category or not, we've got the hospital capacity to care for them. Dr. Christ?
Sure. So as we look at long-term care facilities, these are residents. These are their homes. This is their address. There is state law that requires me to protect people's communicable disease information, and I take that job seriously. If a court of law decides to disagree with the department's interpretation of what type of information we need to protect, I will happily release that. But I've got a lot of communicable disease data, and I don't think people want their home addresses released with that data.
Well, Dr. Chris,
we have talked to multiple HIPAA experts nationally and here in Arizona that say it is not a violation of HIPAA in any way whatsoever. And furthermore, you've invoked your grandmother a number of times, Governor Ducey, and I just spoke with a woman whose father is in the ICU on a ventilator, and he was in a long-term care facility. Another resident, his neighbor, actually passed away this past week after contracting COVID at Westchester in Tempe. And she tells me, she actually has pulled her father's in the hospital, but she says, when I have to put him back in a facility, I want to know which ones had 20 deaths and which ones had 0. And she thinks she has a right to know that, and that would guide her decision. So what do you say to these people who have to place their parents in a facility or are scared about the numbers?
Can you talk about the procedure and how we're handling that?
Sure. So what we would encourage for any facility that you are looking at putting a loved one in, we would recommend talking to the administration. So we have developed letters that they can use to send out information to residents, their families, their guardians, letting them know, because they are the ones that are impacted if there is COVID in that facility. We would take, this is a very vulnerable population, and so and this is a very dangerous disease. So I would not rank the number of deaths in a facility and use that against the facility, because this is a very hard disease to treat in this population.
A very specific question to that. So does that mean, certainly if my mother is in, as the governor knows, my mother's in the facility, they will tell me. If I want to place my mother in a different facility, do I have the right, and do they have to answer how many cases they've had in that facility?
So I would talk to the administration. I don't know that they actually have to release the number of cases or deaths, but we are asking them to be
Why
transparent.
not? That's a fundamental question. Why not? I mean,
So to clarify,
why shouldn't
hold
Howie
on.
know?
So to clarify, you want to go to court over releasing the names of facilities. You'd rather this go to court and people fight for this information.
Because Florida and Tennessee.
Yes. This is something that is very important. I think people put a lot of trust in us with their communicable disease information, and it is state law.
So
it is
going-
not HIPAA.
But Governor?
We want people to be able to make the most responsible decisions possible. We are treating the residents of these facilities as people. We are listening to them in terms of their next of kin or next of care. We're informing them. We're not informing the media.
So you may
Okay.
want to go to court over that.
Well, we don't want to go to court. I'm deferring to Dr. Christ on what HIPAA law is.
Real Governor, you know inmates. I've talked to a father who says his death row inmate son was caught up in squalor because he was placed in a separate facility to be treated for his COVID-19 diagnosis. He's coming out of that now. But what do you know about the conditions of the death row inmates of Florence prison and how they're being kept, how they're being treated, how they're being housed, and the conditions there? Because I've also heard that people who are recovering, the inmates recovering in that section, are being placed with the people who have just contracted the disease.
Well, listen, we want to see everybody inside the Department of Corrections, Rehabilitation, and Reentry be in a safe situation. That includes the inmates, that includes the guards, the correctional officers, and if there's a situation where we've had to make adjustments, and Director Shin has done that, he briefed me last week on the situation, I'm confident that they're doing that.
One more question here. We got to wrap up.
I wanted to follow back up on the assisted living facilities and nursing homes. You've mentioned family members that, you have living in that type of facility. Would you want to know if you were placing them in a facility?
I would
whether
know.
people
I
had
would
died
know.
during COVID?
I
you
would
want to
know.
And should you have the right to know?
If I would know. That's what Dr. Christ explained.
I think he meant a different
That's what
facility.
Dr. Christ explained.
Different.
That's the
Like
point.
a
In other
different
words,
facility.
if
If you
your
had to
mother
move
had to
your
go
mom.
to, let's say, a memory care facility or something else, why would I not have the right, as her legal guardian, to be able to find out this facility has positive cases? Why would that not be my right? If I can find out if she's already there, why can't I find out if I want to put her there?
So you can find out if there have been inspections or if there have been issues with infection control at azcarecheck.com.
That's not the
that's
question.
different.
That's a different issue. Every nursing home I've seen has reports.
That was the question. That is the answer. That'll have to satisfy for today.
So-
We'll be back soon.
Is
Thank
it
you.
HIPAA or state law?
All right, you have just been listening to Governor Ducey lay out his plan for Arizona to return stronger. Let's give you a lot of key dates that were mentioned in this press conference. First off, the stay home, stay healthy, stay connected order, that has been extended now to May 15th. It was supposed to end tomorrow, but again, it's been extended to May 15th with modifications. In terms of the travel industry, restrictions extend through May 15th as well, specifically to areas such as New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. Earlier, when he made this order, he had mentioned that if you traveled to those 3 states, then you would have to self-quarantine for 2 weeks. When it comes to the retail industry, this is interesting here. Starting Monday, May 4th, there can be a partial reopen that is voluntary, but this is in a limited capacity. So specifically smaller retail selling products in a curbside fashion. Also, come Friday, May 8th, this reopen will be bigger for the retail industry. But again, there are still a lot of details to be flushed out about this order, so more details to obviously follow. When it comes to the restaurant industry, May 12th has been a date that has been talked about. This is on a Tuesday. It's a possible date to reopen for restaurants. However, the governor is still in talks with industry leaders as well as health experts. So a plan is going to be flushed out. More details will be released come next week. Let's see, when it comes to gyms, salons, barbershops, they are working with this industry still, but there is no set date in stone yet, not even a possible date to reopen yet. And of course, as you know, many of you know, elective surgeries, that will resume this Friday, May the 1st. Now, Governor Ducey also showed a lot of graphs and a lot of charts as well during this press conference. The bottom line here is that COVID-19 cases day by day, week by week, the cases have decreased. Also, in terms of hospital beds, ICU beds, and ventilators, there is still plenty available, which goes to show that Arizona has been prepared and is prepared. Speaking of which, let's talk about this initiative that he just launched on Monday called the Arizona Testing Blitz. That's where 10,000 to 20,000 Arizonans can be tested for COVID-19. So if you think you are infected, you can now go get tested. All you have to do is sign up at azhealth.gov/testingblitz. There are various locations all throughout the valley. So again, go to that website. The bottom line message in this press conference, this is going to be a step-by-step approach, and all the decisions will be based on data. Of course, we're going to break down more details of this press conference coming up again at 5 o'clock on 12 News. But for more information, for now, you can go to 12news.com, the 12 News app, and our social media platforms. Now we're going to take you back to 12 News at 4.